For ages, humanity has gazed at the heavens in search of explanations for the mysteries and events that unfold around them. In doing so, they are traditionally looking for something greater than themselves, some kind of higher power, some kind of divinity in search of guidance. But after all, if such an entity exists, would humans be using the appropriate form of communication to obtain answers? What could God's language be? Could it be Mandarin, one of the most spoken languages in the world today? Could it perhaps be Latin, one of the most influential languages in many circles in the past? Could it perhaps be Hebrew, which is considered a holy language? Maybe it is something older. Perhaps it is the first sounds that emerged from the mouths of cavemen in the Paleolithic era. That is what we will discuss in the video. Hello, I am Father Donalto, and today I am here to present a theory grounded in my studies of the divine that might provoke your reflection. God is an enigmatic presence in our history, and I ask you, what if he has a language of his own? Allow me to present a few arguments to support this thesis. I want to make clear that this video is not about validating or invalidating any type of belief or religion, nor is it about offending anyone. That said, we can begin. First, let's assume that there is indeed the existence of some higher being, since this is a sine qua non condition for the subject we are going to philosophize about. That said, if we are going to look for something like a form of communication that makes sense for us humans to understand, we can look for characteristics that we consider valid today to consider as a language. With this in hand, we can look for arguments capable of validating these conclusions about a divine language. Does this make sense to you? My thesis, then, posits that God's language transcends English, Latin, or any tongue we might conceive. I propose that the true language of the divine is none other than music itself. But how so? Many may be wondering. One of the fundamental characteristics of a language is that when two people share knowledge of it, they can engage in conversation, exchange information, and achieve mutual understanding. This is a basic principle of information theory. However, if an English speaker encounters someone who speaks only Italian, relying solely on verbal communication, a barrier to understanding inevitably arises. Would you agree? The knowledge of the language of these people is generally connected to their origins, to the environment in which they developed this knowledge and the culture, so that, most likely, the people close to these people have this form of communication in common. But what about God? How could we discover some kind of correlation in this sense? Well, considering that this deity would be the creator of all things, his essence is most likely present in every part of this creation. So we look for something that is capable of resonating and bringing some kind of reaction in anything. What artifice of our existence is capable of this? Well, music itself. Animals are responsive to music, as studies show. Plants are also responsive to it, as more studies show. And human beings, well, if the empirical experience that listening to your favorite song makes you happy. There are many more studies on the power of music on the human psyche. Still unconvinced? That's perfectly fine. We have much more to explore. As we delve into the topic of music, let me ask you, if you had to guess, what would you say are the most prevalent themes in songs across the world and throughout the ages? Research and analysis of song themes globally reveal that certain topics dominate music across genres and cultures. The most common theme is love, which includes romantic relationships, heartbreak, and all the emotional intricacies involved. This theme has been central to music for centuries, from classical compositions to modern pop hits. But what's truly remarkable is this. How is it that people from such diverse eras, cultures, and ways of life, throughout the entirety of human history, so often turn to love as their subject when they begin to create music? I doubt this is a deliberate choice, especially given the endless possibilities for themes. So, what might be driving this phenomenon? In the context of our discussion here, the answer seems clear, and there's even evidence to support this conclusion. Since music is the language of God, the moment musicians begin to compose, they are entering divine territory, which is precisely the territory of love. It would be similar to placing a painter inside a forest and asking him to paint a picture. He would tend, most of the time, to paint what he sees, which is the forest around him. He would need to make a personal effort to paint something other than the forest. Do you agree? Songs that talk about subjects other than love, in any form, would be the prevalence of human will over the influence of the environment, even if unconsciously. Let's continue our research by analyzing music itself in more depth. Let's talk about musical notes. Traditionally, Western music presents 7 main notes and semitones between them. These would be the classic that everyone knows. I say that this would be the equivalent of an alphabet of the divine language. Although it may seem like a small thing to be able to define a language and concepts, I must remember that in Eastern music, such as in India, there are more notes, such as microtones, which are internal variations of the main notes, creating even more diversity. Perhaps the full extent of this divine language, the complete alphabet, is still not fully accessible to us today, but that is a topic for another day. Some musician watching this video now might say, I don't believe in any of that, because in the study of music, there is the concept of scales, where the combination of notes in a specific context is capable of transmitting a specific emotion to the listener. Well, that is totally in line with our thesis here. After all, it is through the combination of the elements of the alphabet, in a specific way, that we create words that represent concepts and generate a reaction in those exposed to it. Once again, another point that corroborates that the musical scale is the alphabet of God's language. Another question that may arise is that the term music is something very broad. A musical note or melody can be sung by one person or played by several instruments in unison. All of this can still be considered music. So what is the explanation for something like this in this thesis? So what is the difference between these examples?
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my house. Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my house.
They are different people speaking the same sentence, that is, transmitting the same message, but something is different between them. That is what different instruments creating music represent. They are the accents. They are using the divine alphabet, therefore the musical notes, but with different dialects. In the end, everyone is using the same language, and that is why music has so many different elements, and yet still sounds harmonious and concise to our ears. Okay, Donaldo, I understand that part. It is all the same thing in the end. But even so, how can there be so many different genres of music? And even more, so many musical tastes among people? If music resonates within humanity, all people should be equally moved and like the same style of music. Right? Not exactly. One of the most important topics we find in religion is the concept of free will. So although we are all part of humanity and theoretically have the same essence, each person will have their own story, their own concepts of life, their own culture, and their own values. This alone could explain musical taste, but I would like to go further, since my thesis suggests that any musical style is music, and thus is divine language. The explanation I find is the concept that God has many faces. This concept is covered in quotes from various faiths in one way or another. Each person, because of their free will and unique personality, will have access to a face of God in their life. This face is personalized to communicate internally in a way that makes sense to you. Perhaps this is the origin of all religions. The same God with different faces, so that individual human beliefs make sense when they believe in Him. Since music is His word, each musical genre will make more sense to each person as a way of connecting with this essence. There is no worse or better music, just different visions of the same thing. And as you become more eclectic, this opens your perception to experience other faces of God in your life. Finally, one last topic I would like to evaluate. Listen to the difference between these two examples.
And I will always love you. And I will always love you.
The obvious difference is that one is about someone speaking, and the other is about someone singing. When we analyze speech, we realize that the most important attribute is the message. The rest of the attributes included in this speech are neglected. But notice that when we are talking about music, there are many other elements involved that are as, or even more, relevant than the message transmitted, such as melody, rhythm, texture, dynamics, form, timbre, tonality, and even if removed from this specific excerpt, there is also harmony behind it. In my opinion, these elements are the divine language, and the message transmitted is the human part that is included in it. When we create music, are we trying to forge an alliance between humanity and the divine? Harmony refers to the combination of different musical notes or sounds played simultaneously to produce a pleasing sound. Would it be a coincidence that many religious messages say that we should live in harmony as humanity? Maybe so, or maybe not. Only time will tell. And what about you? What do you think about this theory? Write your opinion in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We have several interesting topics to talk about in the future. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.